cheese onto the wheat thin, and then you like scoop out some pepper jelly, and it's
Ooh,
probably one of my favorite things ever to eat.
jalapeno pepper jelly. That sounds nice.
It was really good. And then I messed around with client data in Remix, actually. I spent more time on the computer than I expected to during the holidays. Oh, there it goes.
I have to mute it. Okay, I muted it. Whew. Sorry, I was like non-responsive for a second when it started when it
Yeah, start
started
talking to me
going.
too.
I was like, my brain is overloaded.
Ah!
I can't do two things at once.
Oh
Where's
my
the mute
gosh,
button? Where's the mute button?
when there's music in one room and then like someone else turns
Oh,
on music in another room and I'm in the kitchen, I can hear
the
both of them. I'm like,
worst.
everybody stop.
The worst. My son plays piano, and for years I've been like, if I have music playing in the living room, I don't mind if you come in and pause it before you go and play the piano. I really don't mind. I just don't want them both going at once.
Because my brain
And
just
we
goes
have had this conversation ad nauseum, like so many times. We have repeated the same conversation. What does he do? I'm listening to music in the living room, and all of a sudden, dun 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 dun, the piano's going in the other room. I'm like, oh, please, why? The noise,
uh,
my brain can't handle two completely disparate noise sources.
I
Anyway.
got two ears, but they don't work independently.
Got two ears. But they, yeah, exactly. Can't can't isolate the sound between them. There is no
How was your holiday?
ear isolation. It was good. We went, I think I told you we went down to Mexico and built a house. Did I tell you that?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we took my kids and my parents and then like a couple of our friends. There were about, I don't know, probably about 25 people total. And we went down just south of Ensenada and there was this like super poor community. I mean, it was one of those moments where like uh I was just like, wait, what? Like I live on the same earth as this guy here, and he lives in a like literally a shack is what they were
Yeah,
living in. It was just like boards and a tarp over the boards on the roof and an outhouse, and that was it. That's how this guy was living with his family, with his four kids, four boys. So anyway, there was a big concrete slab that they poured next to his place, and we built a house in 3 days. We framed it. We put up the rafters. We put up wax paper and tiling on the roof. We put up drywall inside. We wired it for electrical. We mudded the inside, with the seams between the boards of the drywall.
yeah,
Put in put in windows and doors. We caulked it. Around the seams and everything. We did the whole thing and painted it on the outside. And so yeah, we left him. We didn't get to painting the inside. He has a bucket of paint and a paintbrush and a roller, so he can finish it if he wants to on the inside. But yeah, that's what we did for the 3 days right after Christmas. It was fun. It was really fun, and it was just such an eye-opening experience. My son Ethan is about he's 15, and
yeah. I
he
was gonna
was
say he's
like
15.
he was just loving it. He had like this tool belt on with like this little pocket of nails, and he had like a hammer, and he's like up there like, and I forgot just how much fun it is to like hit nails into blocks of wood.
Oh yeah.
It's so fun. So so he was literally just in heaven, like go nail that. Yep, I got it. Boom, boom, boom. Go
When
nail
he,
that. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Like he was just like, show me what to nail.
he's taller than all of you too, so he could reach the ones you couldn't.
He is as tall as me now. It's
I saw
crazy.
him on the Christmas card. I was like, holy crap,
Yeah, yeah, he's a
he's
tall
tall
dude.
now.
He's a tall
That's
kid.
awesome. How did that get organized? Like,
So we went with a company called Baja Bound. So it's just a nonprofit company that does trips like this and takes people down to Baja California and builds houses. It's
that's
pretty
awesome.
pretty pretty cool. Yeah, it's a pretty cool activity. Um, but yeah, that was my Christmas. And then I also got an MXR Carbon Copy Deluxe guitar pedal, which I'm
Woo!
pretty excited about. And my
Oh,
wife bought me Foo Fighters tickets, so I was pretty excited about that.
I don't have it, but I got a new guitar for Christmas. But
New guitar?
I got a new guitar. Yeah, I got the Les Paul Modern. I should run downstairs and grab it. It is beautiful.
Dude,
Um,
what color is it?
uh, aqua green. It's like,
Cool.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. I'll have it on the next one.
Yeah.
My daughter's band uses a bunch of my equipment when they play gigs. She's the
Yeah,
drummer.
yeah, no, same here, yeah.
And they took all of my chords to their last show.
Yeah, and then you only get like half of them back, and then like the ones that
Yeah.
you get back are not really wrapped properly, and they're all like, yeah.
So I have this whole new guitar and I like can't even plug it in. So I've just been like playing it and like pushing it against the wall so it like
You're like, can I
amplifies
get a
the sound
cable,
by
please?
vibrating through the sheetrock.
Yeah. Those cables are expensive too. If you don't get them back, it's like that was a $75 cable. What why
Yeah, a
how
nice
come
big long one
how
that
come they
doesn't
didn't bring
suck.
it back?
All right,
Anyway.
all right, all right.
All right, people are tired of her, yeah.
Yeah, the chat is like ISR, single fetch,
Yeah.
hydration. You guys
Yeah,
gonna
exactly. Shut up.
what?
Let's get to Remix. All right, let's talk about Remix. Let's talk about Remix. So we have actually shipped a whole bunch of stuff since our last live stream.
Yes, we did. I wiped them all out of the merged column though. I was
Oh,
cleaning up last week and
all right.
I wonder if I can see archived.
Well, that's no
I don't
problem. We don't have to talk about a whole
Yeah,
bunch
it
of
doesn't
stuff that we
matter. But
shipped.
yeah,
We
shipped a
could
lot
we
of
just talk about the latest thing that we want to ship. It's the spa target, right?
yeah, this is
Literally
awesome.
just shipped like yesterday. I think Matt merged it yesterday after our
Yeah,
all
right
hands.
here. It's in I think he cut a pre-release already. Let's see if our bot tells us. Not quite. So today or tomorrow we'll probably have the release out for this. So unstable SSR in your Vite config. Let's see how the docs are looking in there. Docs guide, spa mode. Here we go. My screen is sharing, right? Everyone's seeing that?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. Uh, so you gotta be upgraded to Vite. Maybe that's a conversation to have that a lot of our future features that need to get involved with the bundler, we're not backporting them to the old compiler. Everything is going into Vite. Otherwise, what was the point? um, so yeah, you can say unstable SSR false. That's funny. The spa mode is actually a SSR flag. Um, and this is really interesting. So what this will do is normally Remix creates two bundles. It makes one for the server and one for the browser. And then you stick that server bundle on a server somewhere like Express or Cloudflare or Vercel's functions. And when a request comes in, it calls the server bundle code of your app, and then it renders it to the browser, and then the browser gets all those script tags and then downloads the script tags, and now you have the app in the browser too. So we got the server and the client bundles. With SSR mode, what we do, so we shipped client data a couple weeks ago, and SSR mode false or spa mode um, takes advantage of client data because client data, when you're navigating around the app or loading the app, it just calls the client loader and client action instead of the server stuff. So that set the foundation for us to be able to just not even need a server at all anymore and get everything else about Remix. So with SSR faults, we don't create the server bundles. We do create the client bundles. And then Matt figured out this ingenious little trick that we weren't really even anticipating where the way that it's implemented is when you run remix build, it sees SSR faults and says, okay, I'm going to need an entry HTML file. Like when someone hits your web server, your GitHub pages, or you're just deploying to a CDN or something, just a static place, a request comes in and it needs to serve like an index HTML from the public directory, right? And so during the build, Remix goes to your root route, creates a request handler as if it's running a server during the build. It creates essentially a server during the build, or at least just a request handler, sends a request for the slash route and grabs the HTML from your root route
Yeah.
and then saves it as just the HTML file to be served statically.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's what we've been saying all along, right? Like
yeah,
your server is a site builder,
yeah,
right? Whether or not that is static Just determines like when you do it. Are you doing it on demand or are
Right.
you doing it at build time? Are you doing it at request time or build time?
Yep.
But your server is a site builder, and in this case, we're using the server to build this index HTML file.
So now you're going to have a dist client folder, and you can just deploy that wherever you want to go. If you did Gatsby stuff before, or you've done Next
Yeah.
static exports, or you did React static, that thing that Tanner used to work on, or you just built your own, like the React router website, the old one for V5 and earlier. That's just a bunch of Webpack that creates a bunch of static files. You can deploy it to all of those places. So the obvious next question that people ask is, well, if you can statically generate the root route, why don't you statically generate everything else too
Yeah.
that I want?
Yeah.
So that's coming. We're gonna do that. There are some
SSG and Remix.
yeah, SSG, and then if you're deploying to somewhere like Vercel, then like there will be a way to do an ISR integration. Um, and I don't know what that looks like. I haven't studied how their ISR stuff works, but I know that Vercel designed it so that other frameworks could take advantage of that too, because it's essentially running your build just kind of partially after requests and stuff. But we're not doing that yet because there's a lot of questions about when you flip this flag from SSR false to SSR true. Um, just the way that Remix works, when you're navigating around in the client is it makes these JSON requests for data, and we can't statically generate those yet because we use URL search params. So we need to be able to statically generate the HTML. We can already do that. That's half the story. And then we need to be able to statically generate the JSON requests. Since they use search params, we can't make a static document out of that. So that second piece, we need single fetch first, which is on the roadmap also. And part of the single fetch work will be get rid of the search params in the URL and switch it to just like .json or something like that.
Yeah.
So now we can statically generate the HTML and the JSON for any page that you want to statically generate. And then the runtime in the browser isn't going to care when you click a link if it's, sorry, there's two things. If you load a document, it's just going to serve that HTML from the public directory. Or if it wasn't statically generated, it's going to run your app and generate the HTML. But it's the same app that generated both. Just one did it at build, one did it at request. And then when you navigate through the client, when you click a link and we go and fetch the data for the next page, we need to be able to have a static document of JSON over there too. So after
Mm.
single fetch, we can generate both HTML, which we can do today, and the JSON, which we can't do until single fetch is done. And then we just got to come up with an API for how do you want to statically, like which paths do you want to statically generate?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's coming. It's not here yet. So before everyone starts asking when,
Mhm.
eventually,
Just
but
stuff
we're
that we've got
shipping.
our eyes on, right?
Yeah.
I do have a concern about this like SSR true, SSR false, right? I mean,
Boolean
that
flags are always scary.
it seems like a gross oversimplification of, the spectrum of architectures that we're trying to represent or that we're trying to support with Remix, right? I mean, you could have a single page app where the index HTML is server rendered at request time, right? Like, I mean, that's what Remix kind of is today, but not really. Today you request in the slash with a traditional like server rendered Remix app, then all navigations from that point, the client side router would just sort of take them over, right? We also support additional entry points because the app is fully server rendered. So you could go to any one of those links and then you could hard refresh the page and now you have a new entry point and we'll send you the HTML for that page and then you can pick up the client side routing from there, right? So it's not really like just send the index HTML every time. It's like we support multiple entry points. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I just feel like there are other architectures that are not accurately represented by this Boolean.
Yeah, because you could have yeah, and that's what we're working on. That you and I
Yeah,
are
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
working on that we're not talking about too much yet. But yeah, Boolean
Anyway,
flags.
anyway, we'll figure it out. I basically all of that just to say like this stuff is unstable, right? With the unstable SSR flag.
Yeah.
So we may come up with something there. I saw a comment, somebody said, "Oh, I wish it was a union like SSR or SPA or SSG." Um,
Well, so that's the thing is like you don't want the whole app to be SSG'd or you don't want the whole app to
no,
be
you
server
don't.
rendered.
No,
Like,
you don't.
yeah, maybe slash admin. This is what everyone always says. Oh, it's logged in. I don't care about server rendering. You still have a performance ceiling that's lower if you don't server render even behind a login. But regardless, maybe you don't want to server render behind login. So that part is all SPA, no server rendering and no static generation, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, so it's
it's
like
100.
different pieces of the same site have different architectures.
Yeah. So right now this flag is just saying, well, we create client bundles and we create server bundles. SSR false means don't create the server bundle.
Hmm.
SSR true means create the server bundle.
Hmm.
But yeah, this API might change into like someone said, a union or
Yeah.
maybe like
Yes. Yeah.
bundles client, like an array, right? Which bundles do you want?
Yeah.
Or maybe when the SSG stuff that gets a little more baked, we might realize, oh, that's the spot where we can.
Hmm.
Anyway, we may see a better way to define the behavior that you want.
Yeah. I mean, I think our current Boolean approach is just inspired by Vite's own approach, right? Vite
Hmm.
basically has this mode that says like, are you doing SSR or not? Right? Like, do I need
Yeah.
to generate a bundle for the server or not? Um, but our needs are a little more fine grained than that, right? We need to like we'll tell you whether or not to generate a server bundle based on whether or not the user wants a server bundle for that part of the app, you know?
Yeah, I think right now the Boolean makes sense because it's really just like, do you intend to deploy a node server with this app, or do you just want to deploy client assets? And that's a pretty common decision that people make, and kind of what is, pushed this to the top of the roadmap. And what I love about being at Shopify is that the roadmap gets a lot of. I mean, it's not like someone at Shopify. It's not like Toby is sending a Slack messages like you have to do this now.
Mhm.
But we just keep our ear to the ground and talk to a lot of the teams here, and we see what people are struggling with, and it helps us organize this roadmap. And when you log into Shopify and there's all these third-party apps and first-party apps, a lot of those things are just SPAs, and people don't want to deploy a server for those. And so that was a big motivating factor to move this to the top. Um, but then additionally, there's all those React Router apps out there, a gajillion of them that aren't deploying servers either, but they're looking at Remix like, oh man, that looks kind of cool. I want some of those file conventions and links and meta and all these other things. Um, and so this is to me, this is mostly about helping bring people over into Remix without having to deploy a server. Because it feels just like Remix. I was messing around with it, and it just client loader and client action.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's the exact same Remix.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Pretty
awesome.
awesome.
It's awesome. You get to use the same programming model, but now it's you don't have a server. It's awesome.
Um,
I'm trying to peek down the road just a little bit further and see like, a
yeah.
year from now, I have a spidey sense that a year from now we're going to be looking at this flag like, ugh, can't wait to deprecate and get rid of that thing because like this Boolean is so, like we can do so much more now. It's so,
And
limiting,
it's
right?
related to like whenever anyone makes a chart and posts it to Twitter that's like SPA versus MPA versus this. And like
Yeah.
anytime I see any of those charts, I'm like, oh, it is so much more nuanced than what you're
Yes,
presenting
exactly.
here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like Remix is an SPA. Like once sure, a server sent the HTML, but at that point, it's the exact same as if you deployed a whole bunch of client assets and you're just hitting a JSON API. Like
Mhm.
so it's not an MPA, it's not an SPA. It's like it's all kind of it's yeah.
Yeah, and
Anyway,
and 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 the truth is that most sites have different sections that where different architectures are better suited for that section, right? You've got like your marketing pages. Sure,
Mhm.
statically render those things. Put them on the CDN. Who cares?
Yeah.
Nobody's logging in there. Oh, now you've got a login. Now you've got the profile page, the dashboard, whatever. Now, completely different architecture makes sense here, right?
Yeah.
So how can you build the whole thing with different architectures in the same app is kind of how what I'm thinking. But anyway, yeah, spa mode is super cool. Because we are addressing a whole like from day one we've been like, oh no, the server you should have a server. Remix requires a server. And now this makes that not true anymore. Remix no longer is going to require a server. You can
Yeah.
do all sorts of stuff at build time.
Um, and some people might look at that as like, oh, Remix is backing out of their opinions, but it's part of our opinion that you should be able to deploy on whatever architecture you want. Um,
Yeah.
and so you don't want to deploy a server, but you still want Remix, like we got you.
I mean, yeah. To be clear, the server rendered app still gives you a lot of levers and a lot of benefits that statically generated site won't ever give you. Like it just won't. Uh, you look at like what they're doing with S3, buckets and trying to serve static pages out of there and giving you the ability to set, custom status codes and custom headers on, static pages that you get out of there. And all of the features that they're introducing into, the most advanced static file serving hosts are trying to emulate what you could do if you just had a server.
Yeah, exactly.
So uh, I still really believe that a server is like the optimal, a server with a cache with good caching headers, I think is kind of like if you only had one, if you had to pick one, you can only pick one architecture, I would pick that one every single time.
Yeah, same. And
You
so
know?
what's cool about SPA mode and Remix and our potential SSG stuff is that it's not going to be a different branch of code. We're literally going to send a request to your app at build time and then just save off the artifacts of that. So whether a request is creating that either way. So
Yeah,
the
exactly.
architecture is still the same. The model is still the same.
Well, and you
Uh,
see you see how flexible it is, right? Like
yeah,
we started with this request handler architecture, and now it comes time to ditch the server and generate a static HTML page. And how simple is it? Run a request through the server at build time.
yeah, yeah,
Like that, I don't know, like as software developers, I think we appreciate elegance in engineering and like, oh, that's clever, right? Like when I saw that, I just laughed
yeah. It
because
was
I thought that is so cool that, it was a huge validation, I feel like, that we started with the right architecture.
yep. Request response. Remix is
Yeah.
just a request handler
Yeah.
and a Vite plugin that generates it.
Yeah, Matt was explaining it to me. He was like, "Oh yeah," and then I just create a request handler and run a request. I was like, "Wait, wait, 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 wait. What are you doing there?" I
I don't
just
think we'll call it
laughed.
SSG either. I
Thought
think
it
we'll
was
just
so
call it
funny.
pre-rendering. They'll be like, what do you want? What do you want to pre-render? Here you go. Okay. The chat is just sitting there trying to define all the different versions of rendering, and that's like that's exactly what we're saying. The Boolean flag doesn't do it
What is a
justice.
PEMPA?
That's Kent's
Progressively
thing.
enhanced multi-page app.
So we have a rule at Remix that we're not allowed to create new acronyms. Have you ever seen that
That's why
meme?
Kent
That's
left. He was like, I want to create all these new acronyms, but these guys just won't let me. So I'm
yeah,
out
you're
of here.
you're stealing my punchline.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. You know the meme of the kid sitting at his desk in like high school, and he's like, and he's got like the veins popping out of his head because he's just like that was Kent when he worked at Remix, like wanting to come up with all these acronyms.
Like you cannot write the blog post about PESPA. We're not going to let you do that, Kent. She's like, I gotta
Uh,
I gotta get out of here.
it's good for marketing.
No,
Maybe
I'm
we
just
should
kidding. We
start
did
doing
not
it.
have that conversation with Kent.
Yeah, we didn't. All right. Cloudflare Dev Proxy. So this is part of actually stabilizing Vite. So we have other projects that we don't make public just because I don't know. They're like the roadmap is the main thing. This is what everyone should care about. But we sometimes have like weird little one-off dumb things like, what, Pedro is doing free work for Kent and making it run on Vite. I want that. And we're like, no, sorry. Um, come up with some acronyms and then maybe Pedro will help you. Um, but uh, anyway, so we've got this whole board of all the stuff that we need to stabilize Vite. And as you can see, we have closed a ton of things
Yeah, Mark
for
and Pedro have been
this.
killing it over there.
Yeah, we're almost done. Cloudflare is a major one. Um, so what's tricky about Cloudflare is it's like the burden of support. Who is supposed to support Cloudflare? Who is supposed to support Vite? Who is supposed to support Remix? Is Wrangler supposed to support Vite? Or is Vite supposed to support Wrangler? Or is Remix supposed to support both? Like everyone's kind of got their own little CLI to boot up a server and a dev environment, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so Cloudflare is a little bit tricky because so Cloudflare works with our Vite plugin already, as long as you don't use any like KV storage or D1 databases or anything like that. If it's just like no Cloudflare APIs, then sure you can use Vite because Vite is actually the request handler in dev. Um, but Wrangler wants to be the request handler if you're using D1 and KV and durable objects and stuff. The request needs to come here so that requests for a KV object or a query to the database is coming to Wrangler. And so you've got this like these two little worlds. And so one of them needs to like support the other. We're coming in the middle as Remix and we're saying, all right, here's what we're going to do. And I think Pedro and Pedro's in the chat, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we learned this from Solid Start or Astro. I can't remember which one, who also has deployment adapters like Remix. Um, what they did is they just put a little proxy in the middle for Cloudflare. So it's like all the requests come to Vite, and then if it's some Wrangler thing, we can identify that and send almost like a middleware and send that over to the Wrangler server and proxy it back. Um, so that way you can still use Vite and get the HMR and all that kind of stuff. But then you can also use the stuff that Wrangler needs to serve as well, like your local D1 database and KV. Um, so it's kind of tricky problem. Our approach with Remix before Vite was we are never your server. Like you just use Wrangler and then it calls your Remix code. But now Vite kind of flips that model. It's like, well, Vite is serving things. And so now we got a proxy over to Wrangler for the unique bits. I may have gotten some of the nuance out of that wrong about how it works. So Pedro, correct me. Oh, SvelteKit. Got it from Solid Start and SvelteKit. Um, also known as Remix without React. Uh, someone's gonna get mad that I said that. So yeah, Cloudflare support. I think Pedro's most like I know he's gotten it working. So it should be in a pre-release sometime soon. If not the next one, the one after that, I would guess.
Yeah,
And
it was always kind of it was always my opinion that we we should be the ones to support these other platforms, right? Like we're the kind of new kid on the block, and we should work well on Netlify, and we should work well on Vercel, and we should work well on Cloudflare. But the truth is, there's just so much overlap.
yeah,
Whenever we do something, they think, well, maybe it could be done better like this. And we want to own the process and we want to own the CLI. Well, no, we want to own the process and we want to own the CLI. So we've had similar conversations with like the hydrogen team internally here at Shopify, right? Should people be running a hydrogen CLI or should they just use the Remix CLI? There's just a ton of overlap. So bear with us as we get these things worked out.
yeah, it sounds so simple. Oh, it should just support Cloudflare. Well,
Yeah.
their worker environment is totally different, and then the dev environment is different as well, and they have their
Hmm.
own bundling that they have to
Hmm.
do, and they're using ES Build under the hood, and we're using
Hmm.
ES Build. We're using Vite that's using ES Build. It's kind of yeah, so much overlap. It's hard to put them all together.
Yeah, but I think in the end we should just have like guides in the Remix docs that are dedicated to the major hosts,
Yeah,
right? Like if you want to run your Remix app on Cloudflare, you have made a decision right? Your company has a contract with them, whatever. So that is what you are going to do. This is the happy path. Go down it. And if it says use Wrangler, it could say use Wrangler. It could say use, you know, don't use Wrangler, whatever. But this is how to have a happy, good experience hosting Remix on this host, right? And then at some point, you know, if that changes, well, we'll update our guide. But for now, this is the happy path that we recommend and that we support and that you can file bugs against, right? Hey, that didn't work for me. Oh, okay. Well, let's update it, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think these deployment guides would be just very helpful. And yeah, just here's a couple of the really common ones. And then, oh, if you want to show up and you're a new host, yeah, we would recommend, yeah, we would welcome a new guide for deploying Remix on your host. The happy path is this. And then the hackers are always gonna figure out like skip the guide, you know. Vercel just shipped a new cool thing and I'm gonna use that instead. And okay, fine. Do your own thing. But this is that is not, we can't support that, right? We can't support everybody's own custom thing.
You know what's annoying is that I've written a little bit of that doc already for the future stuff we're working on.
Oh yeah, you have,
But
uh-huh. Yeah,
yeah,
you
but not
did
the current stuff.
the deploying doc. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Um,
that's kind of how I and yeah, anyway. We're gonna fix the packages.
yeah,
And
that
so the
makes it
rest
really
of the
hard.
docs get a lot easier to read. But this was kind of why the packages are organized the way that they currently are, is because I was thinking that these docs would exist, and I was thinking like, oh, well, you'll just use the Remix Cloudflare package on the Cloudflare deploying to Cloudflare doc, right? But
And
then
there's
a
a
lot
lot of
more.
nuance in what you just said too. There's a bunch of other reasons we did that, like the
Yeah.
types for the web fetch API.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
I want the real types for my shim or my
Yeah.
polyfill,
But then
and
a lot of stuff ended up in there that was
yeah, it's a lot.
not
Yeah,
supposed to be in there. But anyway, we
but
have
now we know what the room looks like, and we can organize it better.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what this one is, the
I'm
remix
actually
package.
really, really excited about the package work. Like this work is so long overdue.
Yeah, there's a ton of things that you bring in from Remix Run Node or Remix Run Cloudflare, and like
Mhm.
it has no business being in a specific runtime because it's the same everywhere. And in a lot of cases, the code is like the actual same code too. Like it's just all getting re-exported from server runtime.
Mhm.
So one way to kind of think about this is we're taking Remix server runtime, finding out everything that's public and re-exported from all the other packages, and just putting them in the Remix package. And then taking the other parts that are just us internally in Remix, where we have like these create whatever factories and stuff that like isn't really code that an app would need, and we're putting it where it belongs for us to share. And so the docs will really only branch with like Remix Run Node if you're bringing in like file session storage, because that's a
Yeah.
node specific way to do things, or KV session storage from Cloudflare, because that only works on Cloudflare. But anything, basically, there's a whole bunch of things you can bring from Remix Run server runtime today that works anywhere. And that's what a bunch of people do already. And so we're just going to bless that and put it all in the Remix package. Um,
Yeah. Well,
and
the other thing that's happened over
yes.
the last couple of years is like this idea of just using the fetch API on the server has kind of proliferated, right? It started with Cloudflare, then we picked it up.
Yeah.
Then I think a couple of other frameworks are now doing it where they're just using fetch and request and response. I mean, React itself is recommending you use fetch in a lot of places on the server.
So,
And so
yeah.
yeah, this idea is becoming a lot more common. And so our remix package is just going to assume that you just like that stuff is just there, right? Which the
And Remix
first,
V2 already has that assumption. Remix V2 puts you in charge of
yeah,
polyfilling your environment
yeah,
where
it does, yeah.
and that was the big change. It was like, oh, okay, so because before Remix Run Node
Hmm.
polyfilled the environment and Remix Run Cloudflare added some patches, I think, to some of the
Hmm.
APIs.
Hmm.
Um, but now that's no longer our job because, like you said, things have proliferated. This web API has proliferated to platforms and frameworks. And so now we can just be like, oh, well, we just expect an environment with the fetch API. it's not there, you got to put it there. And then that
Yeah.
simplifies so many things for us.
And we can provide like a polyfill for Node, right? Because that's the big
Hmm.
giant in the room. That's the one that everybody's using most of the time. And so here, we'll take the stuff that we used to, provide as a polyfill and we'll just provide it as like or the stuff that Remix Run Node used to be, the install globals, right? We'll take that and we'll just supply it as like a regular third party package, or not third party, but it's a separate package that doesn't do things automatically now, but you can go and you can call that yourself. We do that in V2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yep.
go and call it yourself. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I'm seeing some stuff in the chat about Vercel and them not updating the remix package and stuff. That brings us to bundle shredding or server builds. Um, we're not doing this for Cloudflare pages. I had some misunderstanding there, but anyway, where is I I'm slacking. I don't have a link to it. Uh,
What are you looking for?
uh, Mark's work on server builds. Um, that's
Oh, it's
got
called like server bundles.
server bundles or something like that. Yeah. Let's see if I can find any issues. Um,
No.
no. Um,
Search for, let me see if I can grab a link to it.
what? Oh, pull request. Maybe it's in a pull request.
Yeah, I bet it is.
I don't know its username. Oh, I gotta click this again.
Oh, this is the
Man,
one
I'm
from
failing.
Nate last year. It's okay.
No, that's not it either. Anyway, I'll get that link and add it
Oh,
to the roadmap in a little bit.
yeah, I'll find it. You keep going. I'll find it.
Um, but anyway, what this allows, so Vercel, they do this thing in, I think they do it in Next on the pages directory or something else. But someone just sent me a message
Oh
with the
yeah,
link.
Brooks has got it.
Okay.
Thanks, Brooks.
Thank you, Brooks. Where did he post it?
He put it in Discord.
In the live stream chat? Or where? It's not
No,
showing up.
with the chat with you and I.
Oh, got it.
8332.
PR.
It's good to have a good wingman. You're on the live stream.
All right, so I'm just gonna pull up the doc in here. Server bundles. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so you get to say unstable server bundles. So this allows you to create multiple server bundles. It came from a product requirement at Vercel. Too Tall Nate, if you know him, he goes way back in the Node ecosystem. Great developer, works at Vercel. And something that Vercel has done with Remix is they went and forked Remix's compiler and added their own behavior where you can export something from a route and say what runtime you want it to run at. Do you want it to run at Vercel's edge, or do you want it to run at Vercel's origin? So you can render some routes at the edge if you want to. And to do that, you need to be able to build the server into two server bundles and deploy one to the edge and deploy one to the origin. So that's why they have a fork, is to add that behavior. And our compiler was not open. It wasn't Vite before. And so they couldn't just tack that on as a plugin or something, right? But we thought that this was useful behavior anyway. Other people might want to mimic this kind of architecture. And maybe you want to deploy all your public stuff to one serverless function and all your auth stuff to another serverless function. And then you can like set different, like if you're on Lambda, you can set different permissions on each one of those functions so that even if a developer writes code that should let you write to a database on the public site, the server function won't actually let any of that stuff happen. So lots of things that people are doing with Lambda and other serverless things where they're going to want multiple bundles so they can just manage those functions differently. Maybe one of them's really hot, and maybe one of them doesn't get hit very often, and so you want to split into two bundles for that. Maybe you want to try to balance your own cold starts one way or another. So unstable server bundles is just going to call up to you with every branch of the route tree. So you got your big old route tree, the root route, it's got child routes, those all have child routes, those all have child routes. And now you can go to every leaf and then climb up to grab a branch. And so this function at build time will get called for every single branch. And then you return an ID for that server bundle. So this one is saying, is this an authenticated route? Is its ID? Does it have this one in it? Does this branch have that route? If yes, return authenticated, otherwise unauthenticated. So this would give you two server bundles. You can deploy one to maybe an origin that's talking to a database, and you can deploy another one maybe to an edge with Cloudflare or something. So the public stuff is all just really quick to people, and then this logged in stuff is closer to your database. But really just whatever kind of architecture you'd want to do there. And this will allow Vercel to just use this feature instead of needing to fork Remix and always be shipping a different version than us, right? They're always going to be a little bit behind, and it's hard for both of us because people get mad at Vercel, or they get mad at us, or they get mad at both of us, and it just makes Remix feel a little unstable on Vercel, and neither one of us want that. So this
Yeah,
feature
so
is
I
for
don't,
them.
yeah, I don't think it was like they just did what they needed to do, right? Like
Mhm.
they wanted to, yeah, they built this architecture where they could run pieces of your app at the edge and a piece of your app at an origin. And, you know, the original idea behind Remix was that, well, your apps will be small, and so you can build a separate app for the origin and a separate app for the edge, and they could just talk to each other, or just, but that's not kind of the way they think about it. They think about it where you build, in one code base, you build one app that runs in both spots. And so, yeah, so our compiler was closed, and they needed to build this thing to do what they did. Unfortunately, that causes a little bit of pain in the ecosystem, which is another great reason to, you know, open up our compiler. So now we can just say it's just a plugin. It's just an option to the plugin. And give them like a first class way without forking our compiler, give them a first class way to support their cool architecture.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is just further validation of the decision to open up the compiler and just stop being so trying to do everything ourselves, right? Give
And
people the
it's
hooks they
also,
need.
this feature is also in the same category as client data and spa mode, where it's like, own your architecture,
Yeah.
right? We're not trying to tell you, hey, you should always use a fat Lambda with Remix.
Mm.
Um, some apps that'll work, some apps you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna want to break it apart. So
Yeah, use Vercel's architecture if you want,
mhm.
or use whatever you want. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not coupling you to a certain architecture,
So yeah, that is,
which I think is just a good principle.
yeah.
You don't want to at the framework level, you don't want to build for a specific network architecture.
And also React router apps out, like we're obsessed with helping people modernize their React router apps and take advantage
Mm-hmm.
of new infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
edge deployments, or lambdas, or like Fly. Fly is basically like half edge and half managed server. Like it feels like a managed server, but it has a lot of the characteristics of edge. And so that's why we don't just build for serverless stuff. We still build for managed server things too, because there's a lot of cool things people are doing, and we want you to be able to use Remix in any of those places. So as you're looking at your React router apps and thinking, how do we modernize our architecture? We don't want you to look at something like Fly or Vercel or SST or whoever and be like, oh, well, Remix doesn't really run very well there. Like Remix is going to run great there. And so we're making sure that we have all the knobs and levers for you to get it there.
Yeah. I was just thinking about React server components and network architecture.
It's got a
Anyway.
lot of assumptions in it.
Well, yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about React server components this year. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for future live streams uh where we will be talking more about that. But yeah, I don't think I want to say anything about it right now. Let's move on.
Uh, single fetch. I think we've talked about that before. Um, Fog of War.
Da, da, da.
So Remix used to do this when we very first launched. There's a thing that we've been obsessed with, a phrase, infinite scale. How can you get Remix to scale infinitely? And we started out with a roll-up based compiler. And then I added like 200 routes and it took like 10 minutes to build or something, or 2,000 routes. I can't remember. And there's an app I worked on when I worked for Instructure on Canvas LMS. And we had over 2,000 Rails routes. And most of those were served UI too. It wasn't just a bunch of JSON stuff. So like thousands of screens. And so I would always just kind of like try to mimic that with Remix. And the roll-up compiler was too slow to build an app of that scope. And so that's when we switched over to ES Build because it handled it very quickly. Um, and along those same lines, we had this concept of fog of war because something that prevents infinite scale is a thing called the asset manifest. So when you go to a Remix app, um, like I'll just go to our website. Actually, no, I'll show a problem website, shopify.com. Um, oh man, the video playing will kill me. So if I say Remix manifest, we got all these routes, tons of them. So we send the whole route tree to the client on one big old manifest, and you can see it in the network tab too over here. Let me reload this and
This is
get this.
airing our dirty laundry, folks. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, but we anticipated it. We just bailed. I bailed. This is my fault. Um, so I'm gonna say remix, or let's see, manifest. There it is, manifest.js. So this thing is huge mungus. And you can see it's a whole bunch of the same stuff. So it compresses down real nice. Here, I'm gonna empty cache and hard reload. It compresses down to 34 kilobytes, but watch this when I hover it. 3.9 megabytes. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of JSON with a bunch of fields that are all named the same thing, right? So
Yeah.
that's why it compresses so
Yeah, it
well. That
compresses
that
really well.
string has loader,
Yep.
is found in every single one of those
What
records.
and
And
the big
so
old chunk name too, that gets
mhm,
repeated across a bunch of the child routes.
mhm, mhm.
But anyway, so this manifest, when we first launched Remix, we anticipated this problem, and it prevents infinite scale because every time you add a route, you add a bigger, um, more weight to the initial page load. Um, and then on low power devices, that manifest, even though it's only 34 kilobytes, that takes a lot of resources on the main thread to parse and expand out to the actual data, right?
Mhm.
And this was a problem in RSC as well before they started deduplicating props that got passed to RSC. So this is something that we ran into at Shopify with RSC and Hydrogen as well. And it's literally the same thing. It's well, this is a little bit different, but same problem where you're just sending the same junk to it's just too big. It just gets too big. And as your app gets bigger, that payload gets bigger. So when we first launched Remix, we did this fog of war thing where we only sent down the amount of manifest that was rendering. And this is how RSC works by default too. So that'll be this problem completely goes away when we have 100% RSC Remix apps. But fog of war we need to do now because we've got this problem before RSC. And then the way Remix used to work is as you click links, we would, as part of fetching data, we would also go and get the piece of the manifest for the next page that was coming, and we just kind of build that thing up. That's why we call it Fog of War, sort of like World of Warcraft or Warcraft 3 is where I was thinking of it, where you got the map and you can only see where you've been, and then as you move around, it reveals the whole map. So we're gonna re-implement Fog of War again in Remix, so that we only send down the amount of manifest that you need for that page, so that you can have 2,000 routes, and then you can change to 3,000 routes, and you're not going to change the initial payload of a page view.
Infinite scale.
Infinite scale.
Scaling up, scaling down.
It's going to look kind of cool. It's basically async children in your route config. And then we'll prefetch so that we don't add waterfalls and slow down clicking on links. When a link renders, we're going to go to the server and say, hey, like, so when a page renders, we're going to find all those links and be like, okay, what's everything that this page links to? Let's go to the server and give it all these paths. Server will match those and say, okay, here's the rest of the manifest that you need. So we're going to preload anywhere you might go from this page, and also give you a way to do it too, just like we do today with prefetch page links. So speed up initial loads, infinite scale, have as many routes as you want. The whole problem goes away with RSC, because the route manifest doesn't even need to go to the client. And so this is kind of just an interim. We're making the Super Nintendo better, even though the N64 is underworks.
Already here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of stuff like that. I feel like in Remix, not a bunch, but there will be some things like that where we're shipping things that in an RSC world might seem, yeah, just extra or superfluous, just not needed, right?
Yeah, and we're still kind of discovering that stuff. Like React's talking about async client components, which you can use right now already in the canaries, and I've been playing with those. Revalidation is the hard thing. Like how do you know when to revalidate after a client action to then do client data? But that's where I keep getting stuck, and I think React needs something. But anyway, maybe client loader and client action in Remix like are irrelevant when we have async client components, because then maybe loader becomes irrelevant when we have RSC. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but
Well, see, that's the
last year,
thing is
yeah.
I feel like our current programming model scales out really well for, like spas, for example. We're talking about like, and another thing we're going to be talking about a lot this year is like Matt keeps calling it the Remix Highway, or like this
Hmm.
path that we're paving for, you know, incrementally upgrading to Remix from a React Router app. Um, and I think, while async client components are baking, right? Like while they're figuring these things out, like our goal is to provide um really compelling APIs and functionality that you can use today without having to like wait or be on the bleeding edge, of React to take advantage of that stuff. Does that make sense? Right. So we can,
Absolutely.
yeah, we can give you really great transitions with, you know, avoiding waterfalls in your data loading and actions that, you know, that uh that solve race conditions and optimistic UI and all of that stuff, right? We can do all of that stuff using Remix's current model, while all of that sort of future stuff sort of bakes in React. And then as it becomes available, we can figure out how to incorporate it.
But and not only that, it gives the apps an incremental path to
Yeah,
the stuff when it gets into React and when it's fully baked. So you can just slowly move bits instead of trying to adopt everything all at once. Um,
yeah.
And really the main thing that you get once these features, I don't want to call them features, capabilities that
Mhm.
Remix has today that are coming to React. Because there's a lot of them, stuff that Remix already can do, but React
Mhm.
has a little bit different API. The big difference is when
Mhm.
it moves into React or when it arrives at React, and we can deprecate ours, is what you get is composition, which is what React has always been awesome at. So it's a
Mhm.
little bit harder to compose some data loading behavior in Remix because it's got to be at the route level instead of at the component level. Um, or actions or whatever, right? I want to bring in a little chat bubble. You click this and you can like chat with technical support. Like in Remix, you've got to like add that thing to every loader and stuff like that, right? Or just use fetchers. But when it comes into React, now that can be like an encapsulated little thing that can just compose into any other UI without needing to
Mhm.
mess around with route configs and all of that. So the big win when React can do something that Remix used to do is composition, and that's what I'm super excited about.
Kind of
Um,
like when it's kind of like when the browser got query selector all, and then people were like, "Oh, I don't need jQuery anymore." I always
yeah,
thought that was kind of a funny conversation because that that assumes that you were only using jQuery to select elements. You know, like
what do
what
you do
about
after you
all?
got them?
Well, yeah, what about all the other stuff you're doing with jQuery, right? Like, uh, it's funny. Like some like optimistic UI, for example, right, is a thing that is making its way into React. Use optimistic, right?
Yeah.
Uh, there's always going to be some nuance there about like, well, what were you doing once anyways, sorry, my thoughts aren't really formed around this, but that there's going to be this, these features that are appearing in React that we have in Remix. You had a tweet about this recently, like, oh, well, we made actions because like React didn't have them and
I
now they
didn't
have
have them.
server actions, right? So like they're incorporating stuff that we've got. And yeah, the trick for us, I think, is just going to be figuring out like when we can fully embrace and use that stuff
Hmm.
and like maybe even deprecate some things that we have, or yeah, when we can make that jump, right?
Yep.
Because maybe it's not, maybe you can't do everything yet that with that you can already do with Remix, right?
Yeah, totally.
So anyway, sorry for
Um,
my half-baked thoughts about
that's what this meeting is.
yeah, right.
I think we covered everything in here. And if you missed it, we're gonna be I I'm almost done with my little hype video on this.
Yeah,
Uh,
Trellix.
but we've got this new example app. You can go in and see how I write remix code, kind of in a rush. I didn't refactor this a whole lot or think too much about it. Still pretty proud of it though. And you can go to our YouTube. Um, and I recorded, oh good, we no longer have that video that immediately plays. That drives me crazy. Um, right here, remix singles, Trellix, cookies, auth, and drag and drop. This, oh, and it's actually live here. Trellix.fly.dev. Um, it's a pretty cool little app. It's got all the drag and drop stuff,
Eat better.
add things really fast. You can pop open the network and watch it just like going nuts over here. Is my favorite part. I can drag this card and move it back and forth. Oh, I'm not showing. I'm still filtering on manifest. Let's do some fast 3G. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And it's using fetchers and fetcher keys. So like this is crazy. This is crazy. This is my favorite one. This is what's going in the hype video. Not even created yet. So I'm gonna save this card and then I'm gonna drag it and then I'm gonna drag it again. And notice when everything comes back, it didn't move or flash or anything, right? This thing is it stays where you put it, even though the network's going crazy. So you can create these cards and move them before it's even created on the server. and it all still just works out. And this is what I think a lot of people don't know Remix is really, really good at, is
Yeah,
something
or
like this.
capable of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do that with plain React. Good
yeah,
luck.
it's gonna be really hard.
Good luck.
And back in my head as we built Remix was this kind of stuff where I'm like, I'm so sick of all my race conditions when I'm trying to build a really dynamic and immediate, right? I want to, when I hit the enter key, boom, I want that thing to just be there right now. I don't want to know I'm on a website. Um, anyway, so go and check out the remix singles on all of those.
I heard
It's got
forms
this,
aren't good for apps.
yeah, you can't build a web app with forms. Um, anyway, yeah, bunch of videos on here and they get really long at the end. These are the most interesting, these three probably. Here too. One, two, three, four. I think most people know everything about this about Remix, the first ones,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
Form
just like the bread and butter
validation.
of building a
Yeah.
web app.
Mhm.
But these four are where it gets really interesting. So go give those a watch. Really fun stuff.
Right on. Well, we're coming up on an hour, so we should probably wrap it up. But thank you everybody for tuning in to another roadmap planning live stream. So happy to have y'all here, and we'll do this again in a couple weeks. So if we don't